very important element. World is interconnected. So, in fact, all these elements, it could be seen as the details of the history of the geopolitics. Someone could say, okay, for example, what is important for the people living somewhere in northwestern Africa, what is happening in Ukraine. But still, we know that it is somehow important because Absolutely. It's an element of this global mosaic we are facing with. And I would say that speaking about how, especially the Western society, so this passing away dominant powers could shift themselves toward the new world, I would say that is the problem. Because, for example, I believe that Dr. Seti could say more about it, but when we talk about the recent days push on Prime Minister Modi from Trump's side, it was only about not buying Russian oil anymore. It was also about buying GMO food from the United States. So not only about ridding off energy imports from Russia, but it also was about increasing imports from the United States to India. And that's the way how the West still thinks about the rest of the world. Only as potential buyers, as a field of the economical dominance. We can observe that also on the example of the post-colonial powers, France and the United Kingdom especially, how they still think of African countries. Yeah? They do not offer anything. They could not propose any new solutions of really existing problems. They propose only cultural dominance, all these elements of cultural hegemony and discourse about, transgender ideology, climate issues, not solving at all, for example, real energy problems of Africa. And the same when we compare, for example, attitude of China. We know that the latest Chinese proposal for Africa was ridding off the tariffs, and making it more free to trade between Africa and China, also with proposing more funds for African countries. When we observe Indian activity, we can observe this focusing on new technologies development of really innovative attitude towards also global economy. And when we compare that to American and Western European attitude, it's completely different. It was still anachronic, archaic, post-colonial. They don't think in different way. They are not prepared, and they are not preparing their own societies for these new multipolar worlds my friend Mateusz was talking about. So, well, we observe that also, especially for the Western Europe, which is, on our eyes, doing a suicide. Because in fact, when we see how Western European economy is shaped, Dragana mentioned about it, with all this global transition of industries and workplaces toward especially Southeast Asia, now, in fact, Western Europe is depends itself from China and Eastern Asia import. And despite of that, Western Europe doesn't want to accept this reality, this new reality, this transition of economical center to Asia. They still think that they could dominate the discourse. They could speak with the Chinese partners only about, Tibet, human rights, and so on, ideological slogans only, not about how to establish new economical relationships. And in this case, I believe that in very short perspective, shorter than we can imagine, for example, Africa could easily challenge Europe, replacing Western Europe as a main partner, not only of China, not only of Russian activity, especially in the field of energy, of nuclear power investment and so on, but they could be a partner. Africa could be still a partner, strong partner for other increasing economies, because there are still fresh ideas and fresh open minds towards this new global organization. And when we compare that with this old-fashioned post-colonial thinking, of the Western leaders, Americans and the Western Europeans, we can see which world is decreasing. This is a question of changing perspective. I always remind my students, for example, that I ask them, can they say what countries have been the richest, the wealthiest at the end of 18th and in the beginning of 19th century? And there are a lot of guesses. Some say Britain, some say France, some say Netherlands. No, the answer is it was China and India. Yeah. Before the British Raj, before the Opium Wars, before all this colonial overtaking of them. India and China have been richest and the wealthiest and more wealthy than Europe, but dynamic was on the side of colonial powers. Now, situation has changed. Dynamic is on side of China, of India, of BRICS countries, and possibly in the near future for Africa. And we observe that, of course, resisting, but the Western powers are standing down.